to Mental Mail. And so I know I haven't did a show in a while, but this is really designed for me to kind of have a digital diary, so to speak. And so it may vary when I do a show. I might do some back-to-back shows. I may do some shows that might be months apart. You know, sometimes it just seems to do some things to get off my chest. I was thinking about something the other day, and I thought I'll kind of put this in my digital diary, so to speak. I had something happen, and I kind of felt this overwhelming experience of euphoria, kind of joy, whatever you want to describe it. And then I felt myself like bracing for the next disaster. I was like, where does that come from? I found myself doing that all the time. And I don't know if anybody else experienced that. Like when you have a happy moment in your life or experience some kind of euphoric moment, or you experience some type of thing that's going on that makes you feel like you in a state of calm or relaxedness, but then somewhere it starts to creep up, you feel yourself embracing or something about to happen. I feel like here comes something about to happen down the line, or you can't really embrace or get comfortable with it. Because you feel like I got to get ready because something happened. I want to take me by surprise. I don't know if anybody experienced that besides me. It might just be something I do. I don't know. Then I started thinking about PTSD, because there's a lot of things that went on in my life, and it's a lot of things that happened in my life, and and it happened like bam, all of a sudden when you feeling nice and calm. What's that scripture says? It says where it be peace and safety, all of a sudden destruction. And that's kind of how like my life being. When it's at peace and safety, all of a sudden destruction. And you develop PTSD. So I said, let me kind of go into that a little more. So like, post-traumatic stress disorder, which we all heard of, is mostly related to vets, people who've been in combat. But it's something this is something that can affect any and everybody. I'll read the definition. It says it's a psychological disorder that occurs in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, series of events, or set of circumstances. It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be something that affects your physical well-being, that's life-threatening, affects your mental, your physical and social well-being, and your spiritual well-being. Examples could be a natural disaster. I mean, think about COVID. COVID was a global, not national, but a global event that affected everybody. That could have caused PTSD for some people. Because if you are a social person and all of a sudden somebody cuts that off and you are locked in, a house, especially if you live alone and you're in the house by yourself alone, that could be stressful for some people. Serious accidents, terrorist attacks, war, combat, rape, SA, and bullying. Those all could be examples of things that can cause PTSD. And so I started thinking about, growing up in the hood, you experience some of these things. You experience a degree of combat. Some people experience great SA, or just assault, period. Some people experience a form of war, a form of terrorist acts. Serious accidents happens everywhere, but it's saying specifically talking about the hood. I think when I start really thinking about people I know, and even my experience, I think a lot of us who grew up in urban areas has a form of PTSD. There's an article in the APA, and it talks about the correlation between inner city living and PTSD. And I was reading the article, and it made me start thinking about some of the things I experienced, some things I know people experience that I know of and been around. And I think it's very fascinating and interesting. And it made me go back to that day I was like embracing for the next disaster. I'm like, is this a result of things we experienced growing up in urban neighborhoods? So it started talking about these things about people constantly looking over their shoulder. And I remember, like, before I get my car, I always do. Before I go, when I'm walking down the street, I'm always. And then it talks about people who go into places and always have their back to, don't sit with their back to the door. I do that. You know what I'm saying? I do that. I don't sit my back to the door. And I started thinking about, when I saw that, I started thinking about growing up. Like, it used to be just one club called the Dancery. There's one way in, one way out. And a couple times I got to shooting in there. And of course, they're coming through the front door when they're shooting. So you actually don't have nowhere to run. Been to other clubs. Detroit West, been up in there, got to shooting. What's the other place? St. Andrews Hall, went up in there, it got to shooting. So you start, so you grow up around this. So after a while, you start developing this. I gotta watch the exit. I gotta make sure who coming through the door, see what happened, looking for these people. You developing PTSD. It talks about, so then it says, growing up around violence. Well, let me go back. These are same, and it talks about how vets and people in inner city have those things in common. Always never sitting with their back towards the door, always looking over their shoulder. So in some ways, people who live in these neighborhoods grow up in war zones. Oh, I thought this part right here was fascinating. When it talks about, I know a lot of us seen this. You see like the candlelight vigils or candles being still lit from the vigil, teddy bears around trees, empty liquor bottles laying around for you, the night you've been drinking after a violent act has happened or a homicide has been committed. And if you've never seen a homicide, you know of someone directly or indirectly who's been affected by that homicide. It's a violent act. Think about, and I'm not one who's been in combat, but so this is just my recollection for what I've seen and heard. But when you walking through war-torn nations or nations who still in war, what do you see? Signs of that war either going on now or have recently been going on. And you see buildings that have been bombed. You see fire still smoldering. You see the signs of that act that has been committed. It's the same thing when you correlate those two things together: the teddy bears, the candlelight visuals, the liquor bottles being left out on the street. Things we have, not saying we, I'm talking about as a society, are producing people with PTSD. And then it goes on a little further, and it starts talking about how studies have been showing that when they did surveys with people, that these people who had these experiences, they also start committing physical assault. Not only physical assault, like fighting or assaulting somebody, but assault with a deadly weapon as part of that too. Then I started thinking about this. I want to say it's TikTok. It might be TikTok or IG. And you start seeing video after video after video of people assaulting other people and being hyper aroused and easily aroused. Look, think about the situation in Chicago. The guy that hit the older lady and the son ended up shooting and killing the guy. This creates this cycle of violence, this cycle of behavior. Violence beget violence. They are a product of their environment. Now, before I know people get in the comments, I grew up in the hood, I ain't come out that way. I grew up in the hood and I ain't violent. I'm willing to bet you sit down and think 90 to 95% of y'all who's saying, I grew up in the hood, that ain't affect me. There's some way that it affects you. It might affect you. It might affect you in your relationship with your significant other, how you interact with that person. It might affect you how you interact with other people in society. You might be one of the ones that goes into places and always looking at the door. You can't really relax. You can't, especially when you're not in your own comfort zone, or when you're not in your own home. Let me say that. You can't really relax when you're out. It might affect you in ways, that you don't even think about mentally. Some people have nightmares and wonder where these nightmares come from. Because nightmares may not show you directly of a violent act, or nightmare might not be something that's of that act that you saw. Because we become numb to it. It becomes normalized. I mean, I remember when I was living in the city and stuff was going on. Then when you hear about other stuff going on, it's like, oh, okay. It wasn't, the shock value was gone. It was like, it wasn't shocking anymore. It's like, oh, okay. Because you become numb to it. That's affecting your mental and spiritual well-being. I think about this. A lot of times we're not allowed to even deal with these feelings. And we do recognize them, especially if you still live in the hood, because you can't show weakness. Because when you show weakness, you become a target. You become prey. And some because of ignorance. We're not aware of what these feelings are. We're not aware of how to put words, how to put a vocabulary to it. It's just like, I know it's something different. I know something's going on, but I don't know how to put my finger on what it is. So sometimes it's just ignorance. And sometimes because you still live in that condition that you numb to it. So it's not until you get out of it and you can look back in and say, you know what? That affected me in this way. And even not me even talking about it. Sometimes I'm like, wow, man, I can't believe how this affected me. A lot of these inner city neighborhoods don't need more policing. They need mental health treatment. That's what they need. They need to be treated for mental health. You're seeing the results of this over and over again, and now it's becoming entertainment for us. You know what I'm saying? Us, I mean, as a society, as a community, this becomes entertainment. We get on our phones, our iPads, our laptops, whatever you watch, and however you consume your social media, and we see video after video after video after video of it, and you become numb. That's just the hood. That's how the hood is. And then we begin to glorify the hood. And then we begin to sensationalize the hood. And then other people outside of our community commodify the hood. And it's this thing that's created a cycle of behavior, a cycle of things that goes on and on and on and on. And we never deal with our PTSD. Even the fact that we say connect PTSD to that, people might get offended because they say, "Oh, you weren't in a war. You're not a veteran. How you have PTSD?" Some of these people in some of these neighborhoods are in wars. It may not be the armed forces. But during wars, when you have to, when you have to go and can't wear certain colors, can't go through certain neighborhoods, can't do have to understand certain policies to be able to navigate and negotiate just to go to the liquor store, just to go to the corner store, the convenience store, just to go grocery shopping. That affects your mind. That affects your psyche. When you get ready to go somewhere and you hear gunshots and it's just like thunder or lightning. You hear the noise, you know what I'm saying? You take cover, then you back onto your routine like it ain't nothing because it becomes normalized. That's war. It's a war in your mind. And then I go back, I circle back in 360 back to how I entered this video when I talk about me bracing for the next disaster. I remember growing up, and especially when I was in high school, when we was in 10th, I think we was in, no, we was ninth grade, entering ninth grade. I think we had the largest graduating students. There was a lot of us when we came in ninth grade. 10th grade, it dwindled down. By the time we got to 12th grade, we didn't have enough seniors to, I think, to pay for the senior trip and year, but we didn't have enough people to do anything because either they was either locked up or dead. They've been killed. I just remember just things just happening like that, being shot at, being shot. Just things that just happens become normalized, and then you develop PTSD and don't realize you got it. And then on top of this, it's gonna be my last point. We don't even like going to. I mean, for majority, I think it's gotten better, but we don't like talking to psychiatrists. We don't like talking to a mental health professional because it's been stigmatized. So think about it, especially some from us men. You know, we can't talk about it with other men because here's what we do, and I'm generalizing, but here's what we do. Either you might have somebody that you can kind of relate, relay a few things to, but when they get too far, they start to get a little uncomfortable. Okay, man, let's move on to something else. They're not only gonna let you unpack so much of it, or you gotta have somebody else. You don't have nobody to talk to because they don't want to deal with it at all. And then if you go to a mental health professional, it's viewed as being weak, but don't realize that you have a mental issue. A mental issue don't mean that you need a straitjacket. It just means you need to work through some of those things that you've seen that's affecting your mind. Some of the things you've seen that's affecting your relationship, that's affecting your behavior. There's all these things that's going on that's affecting you in so many ways that we don't even want to deal with. So I think the article is very interesting. It's on like I said, it's on the APA. And it kind of correlated hood or living in urban areas and PTSD. And I think we see a result of people who have PTSD that have not been in the military, and we wonder why they be acting so crazy, or why they be acting so strange, or why they be acting like that, or why they in and out of relationships, why they have multiple partners. I know we say, because I heard the statement too. Oh, we men, we should have more than one partner. Should we? I don't know. Should we? Is that our drive, or is it just PTSD that we don't want to get close to nobody? I mean, and not just me. It affects women too. It affects women too. I'm speaking from picking this part from a man perspective because that's why I am. But it affects women too. But these things I just think about, and I don't know. Do we suffer? Do we suffer with PTSD, and that's why we have some of the behavior we have? Could be. But anyway, get in the comments. Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Really get in the comments because I'm kind of interested what other people think. I thought it was an interesting article. It's like I said, made me think about some things that I've dealt with and still is dealing with. Until next time. Peace.